حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. قال الله تعالى في التنزيل العزيز بعد نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، يقول سبحانه وتعالى في سورة الفصلت آية 34 ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. In Surah Fussilat, ayah number 34, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the good and bad are not equal. Good and bad cannot be equated, cannot be made the same. Some scholars like Al-Qurtubi and others of tafsir mention that this is actually speaking about the Prophet ﷺ and his adversaries. The Prophet ﷺ represents goodness, his adversaries represent evil. They cannot be on the same footing. And this is of course true, and this is something that is that we attest, something that we testify to and bear witness to. But the principle, like the axiom, the qaida goes, al-ibratu bi'umum al-lafzi la bi khusus al-sabab, that the understanding is derived by the generality of the wording, not by the specific circumstance of revelation. The generality of the wording of this ayah is good and evil are not the same. Good attitude, good behavior, good manners, good morals are not the same as bad manners, bad attitude, bad morality. They're not equal and they cannot be equated. Idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Respond with what is better. Idfa' billati hiya ahsan. In fact, ahsan is not just better. Ahsan is af'al al-tafdeel in Arabic. They say this is good, better, best. So it has the construction of better, but the way it appears in the ayah, it actually is intending for it to be the best. Respond in the best way. Or repel evil. Respond to evil with the best possible response. Don't go tit for tat. Don't respond to evil with evil. Don't respond to inappropriateness with equivalent inappropriateness. Respond to it in the best possible way. idfa' billati hiya ahsan. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. Because quite possibly, a person that you have animosity towards, someone that you are not able to get along with, if this is how you treat them, in the best possible manner, irrespective of their behavior, then perhaps suddenly you will see a change of heart. And quite possibly that person will become one of your closest friends, one of your biggest supporters. كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. Very close, someone who is very intent on supporting you. Wali is actually someone who is, it comes to the word waliya, which means to be behind something or to follow something. Right? So wali is someone who is right next to you or literally right behind you, supporting you. And hamim, from the word, same word as humma, something that's hot, also it's used for a close friend. But this comes from the idea that their support is strong, like the heat is strong. So this is a person who's right next to you and their support is strong for you. This was a person who was your adversary not too long ago. This person was someone you didn't get along with. They were saying evil things to you. They were approaching you in an inappropriate manner. Yet now, it's completely the opposite behavior. And it all starts with idfa billati hiya ahsan. How we respond, how we say things, what we say and how we say. Idfa billati hiya ahsan. This is such a powerful, such a simple advice, but one of the most difficult things to implement. This is one of the most difficult things to achieve. This was when Hassan ibn Ali radiallahu anhuma, the grandson of the Prophet, when he would recite this ayah, he would say this ayah is actually what is talking about the Prophet ﷺ. Remember I told you Qurtubi said, لَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. Al-Qurtubi said Hasana here refers to the Prophet ﷺ. It's because Hassan ibn Ali, the Prophet's grandson, would say this ayah is talking about the Prophet's life. It was revealed to describe Rasulullah ﷺ. He was always repelling evil with good, responding to evil with kindness. And how many of his enemies, sworn enemies, who were out there to kill him, literally, not figuratively, not just character assassination, actual assassination. That was their goal. How many of them turned around to become his closest companions? We have many examples. You can think of many yourselves. Umar radiallahu anhu was actually on his way to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ when he was told about his sister, and then he went and learned the Quran in those circumstances, and then it hit his heart and it changed his behavior, and he became the second greatest Sahabi of all time. You see, from being someone who was on his way to actually kill the Prophet ﷺ to becoming the second greatest. This ayah is literally describing the Prophet ﷺ. And you have other countless examples. Khalid ibn Walid, Amr ibn al-As, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl. All of them would say things to the meaning that the Prophet ﷺ was the most hated person in our lives. And then when we accepted Islam and when we saw his character, he became the most beloved person to us. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. This is how the Prophet ﷺ won people's hearts. This is how he got lasting change. That's how he changed the Sahaba. That's how he changed the world, with the way he will respond to people's evil. And responding to it with the best possible response. If you look at the seerah of the Prophet and you ever study it, this is going to be the one thing you will find repeated again and again and again. My point of mentioning this to you today is a moment of reflection for us. How do we respond to people's evil? How do we respond to people who we don't get along with? We don't have people who are sworn enemies towards us. We don't have that, generally speaking. We don't have people out there trying to assassinate us. But we have people that our friends, family members, colleagues, community members, and we will have a certain amount of friction with them. Just like two physical objects, if they're in close proximity and they're rubbing against each other, there's going to be friction. This is natural. Same with people. When people are together and they're in close proximity, they're sharing a space, there's going to be friction. That is the test for us. How do we respond and conduct ourselves in these relationships? That for us, brothers and sisters, that would tell us about our level of iman. If you want to hold yourself accountable, if you want to see how much of the Quran and Sunnah are you living, how close you are to the Prophet ﷺ, that's the place to look. Not exactly how you prayed, even though that's important. Not exactly how you dress, even though that's important. But actually more important is how you deal with people and conduct yourself with people, particularly those who we don't get along with. That is where, like they say, the proof is in the pudding. That's where it is. idfa' billati hiya ahsan. So I'm reminding you of this today for that reason. It's time for us, it's a reminder for all of us to take stock. All of us. No one is exempted from this. All of us have to take stock of this matter. And I'm not here even though physically I'm on the minbar, I'm not lecturing down to you. I'm saying this to myself first and then everybody else after. Because all of us need this reminder. idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Respond to when someone says something inappropriate or does something inappropriate in the best possible way. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا نَقَصَتْ صَدَقَةٌ مِّن مَالٍ. Charity does not decrease wealth. When you give charity for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will return that in one way, shape or form. That's a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. وَمَا زَادَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا بِعَفْوٍ إِلَّا عِزًّا. When a person shows forgiveness, when they act in a magnanimous way, letting bygones be bygones, that kind of an attitude is not weakness. When a person demonstrates that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is increasing their honor and strength. That's a sign of them being strong. That's a sign of them being honorable. That's not a sign of them being weak. وَمَا تَوَاضَعَ أَحَدٌ لِلَّهِ إِلَّا رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ. And every single person who has humbled themselves for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah has raised them. Has raised them. This is a hadith that's narrated by Imam Muslim, recorded by Imam Muslim. This is something for us to keep in mind, brothers and sisters, particularly as we are about to enter Ramadan. As we are about to enter Ramadan, Ramadan is for us the thing that we build up to. That's the time we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive our sins and write us from the people of paradise and elevate us. And also the sign of that acceptance will be seen in how we act in the world. To attain that goodness in Ramadan, we have to prepare for it. The preparation is, obviously there's a physical aspect to it. There is a mental aspect to it. Maybe even like you take vacations, you organize your months so that your time is freed up in Ramadan. All that is good. But there is a spiritual preparation for Ramadan as well. There's a spiritual preparation. And the reason why I'm mentioning it to you today is because there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that's narrated by Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu. Abu Musa narrates from Abi Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله لا يطلع في ليلة النصف من شعبان فيغفر لجميع خلقه إلا لمشرك أو مشاح. رواه ابن ماجه وغيره وصححه الألباني رحمه الله. This hadith of Abu Musa al-Ashari goes as follows. The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the 15th of Sha'ban, the middle of Sha'ban, He looks at His creation and He forgives people, all of them, except people who fall under two categories. Category number one, mushrik, somebody who doesn't consider Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala their only ilah, their only deity, someone who worships other than Allah. This includes someone who rejects Allah, rejects the idea of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, someone who rejects the concept of salvation in the next life attained through worship of Allah in this life. All of that is included in mushrik, and the reason for that is they reject it. That's why they're not included in this forgiveness. And the second category is mushahin. Mushahin, from the word shahna. The word shahna has some meanings in Arabic that are very interesting. It means something that is full. Linguistically speaking, when they would say in old Arabic, they would say about They will say شحن الإناء بالماء أي ملأه. They would say that this person has, or he has filled the water in this container, has filled it to the brim. That's what the word means, for something to be filled to the brim, to be topped up. Its dictionary meaning in application is al-hiqdu wal-adawatu wal-baghdha. Is hatred and animosity towards others. But if you consider its linguistic origin and its applied meaning together, it means this is a very intense type of hate, a very intense type of animosity towards another person. Something that's not like a passing moment or a passing thought. You're upset at somebody for a few hours or a day or two, and then you move on and then everything is fine. This is almost like it's a permanent state of hatred and viewing someone with anger and animosity. To the point where the word used is mushahin, from the word thing that fills up. It has like filled you up. This emotion has filled up yourself, has filled you up and come to define who you are. This is a dangerous situation to be in. There is obviously oppression. If a person has been oppressed, you cannot expect them to love the oppressor. That will be impossible. That will be humiliation, actually. That will be humiliation. For someone to love their oppressor, that is a humiliated person or a humiliated community. You can't either expect the oppressed to forgive their oppressor without some sort of justice being served. If a woman has been oppressed by her husband, or some other person has been oppressed by another, you can't just tell them, forgive them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not going to be feasible. In fact, that's not what the Quran and Sunnah are saying. What is your haqq, you take it, and then after you have gotten what you deserve, now you let it go. And that's fair. But I want you to exclude those two circumstances, because perhaps those are very, very particular. I want us to think about just the concept of being angry and having animosity and hatred towards someone, so much so that it comes to define who that person is. It fills them up to the brim. How counterproductive is that? How useless is that? Who is the one getting harmed by it? Who is the one who is getting burned by it day in and day out? It's the person who's carrying it. It's the person who's carrying these emotions. They are the ones who's suffering firstly. Think about it for a minute. Sheikh Salman al-Awda rahimahullah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free him from the oppression that he's suffering. He said something once that really affected me. He said, if you were to forgive someone, the first person who benefits from your forgiveness is you. The first person who benefits is you. Because now your heart's at ease. Now the fire has been put out. Now you can actually return to being rational. You can stop being emotional and irrational. That is a kind of person that the Prophet ﷺ said is excluded from being forgiven. This, brothers and sisters, is a stark warning for us. We have to be very mindful of the feelings that we carry in our hearts. The feelings that we carry in our hearts towards others. Because this particular feeling, and this is a Sahih Hadith, could become a barrier for a person's forgiveness. Could be the reason why their forgiveness is on hold. They've done everything right, but their spirit was not prepared. Their soul was not ready to be forgiven because it was still holding on to those grudges. And that would be the tragedy of all tragedies. أقول ما تسمعون واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ولا أما بعد. The Prophet ﷺ says in an authentic hadith that is collected by Imam Muslim, he said, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تباغضوا ولا تحاسدوا ولا تدابروا وكونوا عباد الله إخوانا. He says, O people, the O people part here is implied, that don't have animosity towards each other. Don't carry those feelings. Don't carry the feelings of hasad, of enviousness and jealousy, desiring what someone else has and hoping that they lose it, hoping that they lose that goodness and you attain it. Don't carry these feelings of hasad. Be brothers and sisters. Be like a family. Because that's who we are as believers. This is a difficult thing to do. That's why the Quran, when the Quran is advising of this, it says, لا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة. Good and evil are not equal. Because this good is so much better than the evil of carrying these kind of emotions and acting upon them. This person, the person who can truly live idfa' billati hiya ahsan, truly live the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that person is not like someone who is just carrying around these emotions, ruining themselves, burning themselves up all the time, holding up their forgiveness, and also compromising their relationships. A life full of regrets. The two are not equal. This, brothers and sisters, is something for us to think about as we prepare for Ramadan. This is our spiritual preparation. This is our spiritual preparation. And this is something all of us need to take stock of before it's too late. And we do this by asking Allah to forgive us and to open up our hearts. إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا اللهم صل على محمد في الأولين وصل على محمد في الآخرين وصل على محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين اللهم أحينا على سنته ومتنا على ملته واحشرنا في زمرته واسقنا من حوضه يا رب العالمين اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان آمين يا رب العالمين وقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
So just make sure that your lines are straight. Just look around you to make sure you're in a straight line. And after Salah, kindly proceed to the exit as soon as possible. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.